We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
No free advertisements over here. In fact, Steve, start the show.
Welcome to Mostly Horror. I'm Steve.
And I am Sean.
Sean's trying to peel the brand off of a bottle, so that way when we post this video, no one can see the brand. No free advertisements, except for they're not free, I guess, the advertisements during the show. Another great episode. We are joined by Bomani J Story, who is the director of the new film that's coming out this Friday. If you're listening to this on Spotify or you're listening regular, it's coming out on June 9th, not coming out if you're listening to this on Wondery. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
Yes.
Very fun film, very good film that we talk about at length. Obviously, it's our whole interview. So we'll get to that in a moment, but I'm going to bring back, I'm going to kind of merge two of our segments today. I'm going to scream with, you probably already know this by the time this episode comes out. You probably will already know this. And actually, this issue has resolved itself within 24 hours, the thing that I'm going to scream about. So without further ado, I'm going to scream, but you probably already know this.
I'm going to scream.
I'm sure you already knew that.
You only tell me stuff I already know.
You already know what I'm going to tell you.
HBO Max is now Max.
Oh,
which is stupid. And that's not what I'm going to scream about, but that's dumb. It's just dumb. It doesn't make sense. It is the fact that you can go on Max and there's a tab or like subheader that is HBO is so weird. And I know that HBO is merged with this, is merged with that, is merged with this, but HBO is the brand. HBO is the product, and it is such a dumb thing, but that's not what I'm angry about today. During the switch from HBO Max to Max, on the credits of films, and I'm assuming TV shows, I've just seen it for films, Max lumped film directors and writers under a single creators heading.
What?
So essentially, if you looked at credits for, let's say, Raging Bull, it'll have the rating R, subtitle languages, audio languages, starring, the actors and actresses. And then instead of directors and writers, there's just credits for what's called creators. And when you look on like creators of Raging Bull, it's not directed by Martin Scorsese. It's creators: Peter Savage, Martin Scorsese, Mardik Martin, Robert Chartoff, Paul Schrader, Jake LaMotta, Irwin Winkler, Joseph Carter. Obviously, this is something that fucking riled up Twitter today. It is just absolutely insane.
Lazy.
And there's a filmmaker, his name's Stephen DeKnight, he's credited in shows like Daredevil and Spartacus, and he tweeted an absolute masterclass in how to fuck up a streaming service. This will be studied for years. But as of the time we're recording this, we're recording this on May 24th. This episode's going to come out whenever it comes out. But Max, I hate that the company's called Max. Like, we have a friend called Max. It's just fucking like why would you call, like, I don't know, name your dog Max? But they released a response. Here we go. Max said, "We agree that the talent behind the content on Max deserve their work to be properly recognized." And again, listen, my title is Manager of Content Operations. The term content is just like the way that we've lumped in all of these things together under the genre of like, listen, what we make, like, with the nets, like, that's content. It's social content, it's digital content. We have series but it's not TV, it's not
Sure.
films. So I'm fine with calling that content, but calling these award-winning and enjoy these films and TV shows content is insane. But this just
It's
shows you,
disrespectful.
it shows you how
disrespectful,
they
man.
feel about it.
Yes.
So it says, I'll restart. We agree that the talent behind the content on Max deserve their work to be properly recognized. Spokesperson for Max said in a statement to Variety, we will correct the credits, which were altered due to an oversight in the technical transition from HBO Max to Max, and we apologize for this mistake.
They had AI do it. They had AI do it. They had fucking AI do it. They're like, it's good. AI was like, no, these are the dudes that made it, man. It's
They
fine.
created-
All the content. Oh,
I can't
my
imagine.
God.
Yeah.
Wow, that is, dude. That's bad. That's objectively bad. It's so dismissive. It's lazy. I truly think that maybe they actually had AI do it, or they had a program just fill in everything because they didn't want to look up who did what, or just look at the fucking credits. I don't know, of like big fuck up. I'm gonna say really quick. I think we might have complained a little bit about the Max thing before. Maybe not. Maybe on last episode or an episode before we mentioned it. But I personally don't like. I get it. I think it's dumb. I don't think I'm as bothered as other people. Bothered as you, as bothered as Madison. My girlfriend was like, "It's so fucking stupid. I'm calling it HBO." Like,
I will
like,
not.
I
It's
don't...
like I'm not calling him Dad. I'm not calling it Max.
You're not my Max. You're not my real Max. It's definitely a weird decision. I do not get it. I guess I don't know. I don't give a shit. I'm like, I guess that's the thing that it's called now. But I do think it's silly and dumb. But holy shit, how do you fuck up? I mean, it's essentially a rebrand, a launch. That's what it is. How do you fuck that up so bad?
Yeah.
Like,
I will also say,
sense.
in the midst of HBO turning into Max and ruining everyone's lives and discrediting all of these wonderful artists and creatives, Netflix decided that this was the day that they were going to crack down on their password sharing policy. So I don't know if you've received the email from Netflix, but they are, this is something where that was like leaked beforehand, and Netflix was like, whoa, no, we weren't doing it yet. Hold on, no, not yet. In the middle of the shitstorm that was the Max launch, Netflix sent out an email, and you know what? We're just gonna fucking read it. They said, an update on sharing between households. Hi, Steven. Your Netflix account is for you and the people you live with, your household. You can easily watch Netflix on the go, and when you travel, either on your personal devices or on a TV at a hotel or vacation home. And basically they talk about, right now you have to check who's using your Netflix. If you want to share your Netflix with someone outside of your household, you can transfer your profile, which means it's not yours anymore. You transfer it to somebody else that they pay for. So they're paying for it now. Or you can buy an extra member. So you can share your password and you say, okay, I'm adding my dad to this and I'm going to pay an extra $8 a month. I can't see this. The fact that all of this is happening at the same time as the writer's strike and like the, SAG-AFTRA, signing on
the fucking room.
Yeah.
Read the room.
Yeah, it's insane.
What even? Like, first off, absolutely asinine that they're going to do this at all in the first place, period. Yeah. Especially that it was leaked and that they cowardice couldn't admit it, and then now we're all right. So like fuck you for doing it. Fuck you for not admitting that you were going to do it when you got caught that you were going to do it, and then fuck you for doing it now. Like right now is when you're going to do it. Also, really quick, I have to bring up, I know we talked about this a little bit before. How does it, what was their whole solution for like watching it outside of, what do you mean? I watch shit on my phone. I go to we go home. We live in New York City and we go home. I'm not signing into shit. They were saying it was like, if you want to watch it someplace else besides your house, it was like 6 days. Like you have to re-sign in, and you get like 6 days or something like that, and then it stops. It might even be like 3 days. And it's like, dude, we go home for a week and a half, 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? And
yeah,
straight up, I just won't. I'm
curious what happens when I like try to watch.
I'll tell you
Netflix
what
in
happened.
a couple days.
I'm gonna put foot down. I'm gonna say something shitty, but like, dude, that's just when you cancel your subscriptions and you pirate their material until they're better. Like, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of great Netflix shows, a lot of great creative, amazing people that are connected to Netflix, people who shows we admire, that we have talked to, that we would love to talk to. But fuck that, man.
Yeah, the fact that Netflix did this today, and a week from today, the new season of I Think You Should Leave comes out, makes me really conflicted. It makes me really conflicted. So I can't cancel my subscription or anything. But by the way, the trailer for that just came out today. If you need a little jolt in your life, if you haven't already watched the trailer, you gotta watch the trailer.
I saw your story on Instagram.
It's gonna be so good.
You've been hyped up.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. So that's what's going on in the world of stream. I feel like we just update every week based on what the shit show is that's happening in the world of distribution and streaming and all this garbage town.
Absolutely not.
That is the entertainment industry. And we just, it's not this episode, but our next episode, we had a conversation where we talk about, how industries are kind of cutthroat and shitty, and sometimes the creatives that are a part of them just have to let it be what it is, which is unfortunate. But
listen, man, all these other streaming services are stepping up their game right now and coming out with these great shows. Like Netflix is picking the worst time to spit in its audience.
HBO turning into Max is fucking stupid. It's a dumb thing, but they still have the best content. They still have the best, TV and film. Like Succession is ending, and Barry is ending, but those are two of the best shows out right now, and they still have House of the Dragon. I'm sure they're gonna come, with more stuff. It's just,
I'm balls deep in Sopranos. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I'm out here, man.
Yeah,
we're
I guess. It up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a segment. We have to make a new segment that's just like, I can't think of a creative name for it right now, but that's specifically about the shit show that is the producers and the industry.
Screaming about streaming.
Put it on a shirt. You hear that? You hear that, Wondery? You hear that, Ash and Elena? Put it on a shirt. Put it on a shirt.
Screaming about streaming. So that's what I'm screaming about today that you probably already know. Anything else you had to add to this intro today, Sean?
No, not specifically. I mean, there's a bunch of trailers and stuff coming out all the time. Nothing that really has me jolted other than the things that we've already talked about. So I think in terms of horror news, like, obviously keep up. I'm not trying to dismiss any of the couple things that have been announced, and we're doing a little bit of traveling, busy week, so I'm not entirely caught up on every trailer, but yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about the actual movies and news on that next week.
Yeah,
it's kind of how
yeah, I will say there's a ton of great trailers and stuff. That we can mention our Rex, but like, if you haven't watched the trailer for The Creator, it's pretty sick. If you want to watch the trailer for Theater Camp, is very funny. New trailer for Problemista just dropped today, so a lot of good stuff.
Nice. I know that the flood has like a trailer. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about like Gator stuff. Handful of things that I'm peeking at, but also trying not to watch trailers for. I'm just going to say once again, I'm just really excited for Boogeyman. I think all my heart's in Boogeyman right now. I'm just waiting on Boogeyman. So
definitely. All of that said, we mentioned this at the top. We are talking to director and writer Bomani J Story today. Wonderful conversation, Sean. Any final thoughts before we get them over to this conversation?
The conversation with Bomani was great. Obviously, the way that we're recording right now, it's been a couple days since we got to chat with him, but it was such a great conversation, and he just has so much insight, into into the work of Frankenstein. You can tell that he's a big fan, and just the way that he applies it to the social commentary that he's making. It's a great episode, and we had a lot of fun. I think you guys are going to dig it.
Totally. We will get you guys over to that interview, and after, stick around for our mostly horror recs of the week. Enjoy our conversation with Bomani J. Story. All right, we are joined today by Bomani J. Story. Bomani is a writer and director whose directorial debut, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, comes out in theaters, digital, and VOD on June 9th. Bomani, thank you for joining us today.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting, right? Like, first, I mean, obviously your film premiered at South by. That was did it premiere at South by? Was that the first time it was in the US, showing in the US?
Yeah. We'll premiere South by Southwest.
What was that like? Sean and I were kind of talking about like all the interviews that you probably had and all the press, and like, was it overwhelming in a good way? Like, what was that kind of like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely overwhelming in a good way. Like, it never, it's like you dream about these moments, and it's not that I ever thought that it would never happen. It was just one of those things where it's kind of just like, oh, this is happening. Like, it's like trying to live in the moment, because you'll never have your first movie, directorial debut, world premiere, like all those things at the same time again, and yeah, it was just great. Like, everybody showed up, it's like the cast, the crew, the producers, distributors, like they all kind of came to see the movie, and it was awesome.
Hell yeah. Is that the first time? Obviously we can talk about like movie specifics. I don't want to give anything away, but was that the first time that you saw it with a crowd? Did you do any like screenings or anything beforehand?
Yeah, nah, like that. Yeah, that was my first time with a crowd.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was an experience too.
Yeah, I was about to say it must be so nerve-wracking and exciting and just everything, exhausting even maybe.
All of those things, all of the above.
Yes.
So we obviously want to talk about your film. We're going to dive into it a bunch, but before that, we normally start off our interviews with a question that we ask the majority of our guests, really all of our guests, is we like to know about your intro to the horror genre. So whether it was, a movie that was on, you kind of snuck behind a couch to watch it and you maybe shouldn't have, or a film that you were allowed to rent before you should have been able to, like, do you remember kind of your earliest exposures to the horror genre?
Yeah, like a few movies kind of come to mind that were kind of like my early, what you say, exposure, which was like, probably like Nightmare on Elm Street, Leprechaun, and Child's Play, Sixth Sense, and The Ring were probably like, some of those are like the earliest I can think back to. You know what I mean? That kind of like where you're kind of a kid and these movies are doing weird stuff to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's those ones are probably the ones that like, were around in my like supreme youth, where like horror is starting to affect you or whatever.
Yeah.
Were any of those more effective than others? Like you have you have Leprechaun, which is crazy out there. I mean, and Child's Play is like that, but a step down. But then you got like, The Ring that has its own vibe. Like, you got a good variety of horror there.
Yeah, I mean, probably the one. I'll give you a 2-prong answer.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy Krueger probably, or Nightmare on Elm Street, probably like did the most damage just because as a kid, it's like I didn't like monsters. Like monsters like scared me. They still kind of scare me now, but like I don't like them, right? Like,
yeah.
Like I don't like it. I don't like it. All right.
Sure.
But it was more that like the thing that actually scared me about Nightmare on Elm Street was just like you can't fucking go to sleep.
Can't escape it. He's got you cornered.
Come get you, like
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that, as a child, fucking terrified me.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, "What do you mean I can't go to sleep?"
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
That's supposed to be my safe space.
Yeah. And like for a while, he like haunted my dreams as a child. Like I had a reoccurring nightmare with Freddy Krueger in my dreams for a little bit as a kid. Like it was terrifying, and like it didn't stop until like my sister was like, you have to learn how to control your dreams and like think about like fighting him or something like that. Your dreams are
Right.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay. But then, like in my dream, I did fight him. Like in my dream,
Nice.
There you go. There you
and
go.
and then it was so cliche because it never came back again.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you conquered it.
Yeah,
Oh.
he was gone. Like, I
You-
never had to fight with Freddy Krueger again.
That was your own Elm Street movie, and you were the
Yeah.
survivor. Yeah. It's
basically. So, yeah.
That's so funny. I think you're making me realize that I've seen those movies a million times
Yeah.
for, since I was like 10 years old now, and I've never had a Freddy Krueger dream, and I've never realized that I didn't have one until right now.
You're gonna
And
have
I'm
one
kind of
tonight.
jealous. I hope so. In a weird way, I hope so. It feels like a rite of passage. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have to say that I love Leprechauns on the list because no one has ever brought that up. I don't think,
Yeah.
at least not for their intros.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Did you stumble into these yourself, or did you have an older sibling or an adult that was kind of bringing you into this world?
No, my fucking big sisters are up here putting this shit on and scaring me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was fucking tell someone like, so they were like putting this on, right? Scaring me as a kid. And then literally like fucking like 4 months ago or something like that, I was talking to my big sister because, this movie's coming out, and like the horror movie. It's like, yeah, I don't really like horror movies. I didn't really like watching them. And I was just like, so you traumatized me. You put on me. You don't fucking like them. Like, what the fuck?
Oh man, that is the role of the big sister, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So obviously your movie is really about Frankenstein, and we're going to deep dive that more. But I'm curious, when did you first come in contact with Frankenstein, and was it from the Universal movie, or was it from Mary Shelley's book? If you could kind of tell us about that.
It was the book. Yeah, it came when I was like fresh out of high school. Like I read that book and was just floored by how incredible it was. Yeah, like I adored it, and it gave me an anxiety attack. And yeah, that was my first time kind of dealing with it.
Fair.
Was that
do you?
was
Go
that the
ahead.
first kind of like obviously it's horror to a certain extent, but was that the first sort of thing in that genre that you picked up and read at that time?
As in, like, is that the first of the
Kind of, dealing with anything with like horrific elements. Like obviously, like anyone that reads Frankenstein, like it's horror to an extent because of the monster
Yeah.
aspect of it, but there's so many layers of the onion to Frankenstein. It's not like a straight horror novel. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you were looking for something horror, or if it was really just like something that you picked up and it happened to be Frankenstein.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's something I picked up and it happened to be Frankenstein. Like I was just
Gotcha.
kind of, whatever. I'm blanking on the era it's in. Is it romantic or Victorian? It's one of those, right?
I think Victorian. Yeah, it's
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's also
Fact-
the birth of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever era it was in,
Mhm.
I was doing books in that era, and so
Okay.
like in that one happened to be one of them, and I was like, oh, well, it's like I've never read it before, and I haven't really seen the movie. I've seen stuff, but like not really the movie. So let me check it out, and then I read it, and I was just like, whoa, incredible. Yeah.
Did you watch anything afterwards? Because obviously, like, there's so many iterations of Frankenstein. There's so many, films or novel adaptations to the original novel. Like, did you explore the world in any other ways, or was it really just Mary Shelley's piece that was like the one and
Yeah,
only for
and
you?
Mary Shelley's piece was kind of the one. I mean, it's kind of hard to not see any
Sure.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Yeah,
I mean, Frankenstein's around. Like, even if you don't see the movies, they're doing 5-minute cartoons. You know what I mean? It's just
Sure,
like you're
yeah, the character.
stuff, right? So, you're not, wasn't like I was avoiding stuff. I mean, it's around, but
Yeah,
as far as like influence and what impacted me and what I was walking around with and what I was like actually seeking, yeah, like literature, like I just stayed with that because it gave me everything I wanted. Like it's like I had, it's like that was what I loved.
Heck yeah.
So
I
go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
I was just going to say I really need to reread it. It was one of those books that I read in high school, and I thought that I was going to love it, but I think I was a very different horror fan, and frankly just wasn't prepared for what it was. And I came out of it like enjoying it, but not loving it the way I felt like I was supposed to. And it's been years at this point, but I need to revisit it. That's all I was going to say. Is
Yeah, and
I
it's
think I'll add that to
like
my list.
Something like your film will prompt that. You know what I mean? Like it's always interesting when there's something adapted from, you know, an old source material, because you watch a film like The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, and you go, that was really good. I need to revisit Frankenstein, because like if this is Frankenstein, I was missing something. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't enjoy it before, so that makes sense. I'm curious, when did the loving of the original novel turn into writing your script? Because I believe I read it was like 10 years in the making or something along those lines, so this has obviously been, you know, gestating for a while. Can you kind of talk about that process and when that started for you?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I finished the book, I knew that I was like, I need to do something with this, because a lot of stuff in the book is being left on the floor, you know, with some of those iterations. And I was like, I knew immediately, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have the cinematic language yet, you know, so it was kind of just like gestating in my head. And as I watched more movies and, you know, learned about filmmaking and stuff like that, like it slowly started to accumulate until finally, you know, it popped, you know, probably like, I don't know, like somewhere around the 2016 and 2018, like around there and there, like somewhere in there, like shit popped. And like I started kind of, the pieces started kind of coming together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sean, Sean and I were talking about how we were hoping that your answer was going to be similar to Mary Shelley's, in which like her and her friends were just doing a bunch of drugs
in a summer house.
In a summer house, yeah. Like, but either way, I mean, we'll take either answer. You should keep that as your answer moving forward, though. You just tell, but the same way Mary Shelley wrote it. We were just doing drugs in the summer house.
I'll rewind. So when and like I was like, you know, it'd be fucking crazy if I just went off a fucking movie, and then I went to my room and I came out with a script. I was doing drugs with my friends. It was crazy.
Boom.
All right, cool. So we'll edit out the other part. No. So, you know, obviously this film focuses on the perspective of people of color, specifically women of color. I mean, the title is literally The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, which I love, by the way. I love that title. Can you discuss the significance of centering on that voice, and kind of the themes of empowerment or agency that may arise in there? Why was that perspective so important to you?
I mean, it is important to me, but it's also like that's, you know, that's our reality. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if I'd be being honest if I took any other, you know, perspective other than, you know, that one or whatever. So, and, you know, also there's just like a lot of stuff that has been, you know, not shown or not given a chance to be seen. So it was important to me to get that there, you know, because a lot of times we're not able to see a lot of, I mean, we don't have a lot of black horror, to be honest with you, you know, or black cinema in general. Like there's a work, but in comparison, you know, it's like there's not a lot out there, especially in the genre space. So, and, you know, not a lot of different portrayals of things. So to me, I you know, I wanted to add to that, and yeah, hopefully people respond to it, you know. So it was crucial to me to kind of get all those things and really, you know, using my big sisters as my muse, really showcase what I know about them, you know, what may or may not be seen, you know.
Was that something with Vicaria specifically? I mean, you know, you could have called this movie The Black Girl and Her Monster, right? But instead you chose to use the word angry specifically. I'm curious what that significance of the word angry is in the title for you. How, because obviously, you know, for for those who have watched, and this is, we're gonna kind of talk about spoilers, but Vicaria is angry for a number of different reasons, but when you meet her, she's not just an angry girl, like offstandish kind of person that you wouldn't want to talk to. She seems like a very nice girl. So I'm curious why angry is the word that you chose for the title to describe her.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like I wish I had an intellectual like answer for this, but it's like I can't say that I do. I'll try, but like it really came from an emotional place, while I was writing it, because my titles so far, it's like they come pretty late in the game. I tell the story first with the script, and then once I'm done telling the story, then the title kind of speaks to me. Kind of comes out like the words that need to be there.
Yeah.
And so this one kind of just like it popped out and it spoke to me, and when it was going out there and I started kind of, taking it around and, meeting with actors, and when we landed on Leia, like, she kind of was challenging me on it and talking to me about it. And, and then even Amani, the girl who plays Jada, she even had like words to say about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like hearing people's perspectives and what their thoughts and their feelings, and it really made me, as it went on, it started to get a life of its own, the title itself on all the different meanings that it carries, and so like that's kind of been my emotional like journey with this title. I can't say that there's just like some kind of intellectual like way that it came about, it's like, because I wasn't trying to be provocative, it was just coming from an emotional place from
I feel like that's for this specific thing, it seems like from coming from an emotional space is the most intellectual thing you could have done with it, like that just makes sense.
It's so honest. It's the most honest space.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yeah. No, it is. I know that you talked about Frankenstein, the original novel, leaving a lot on the cutting room floor. Your story, so like Frankenstein, the novel bounces, right? It kind of talks about the monster, talks about Frankenstein. Your film talks about the lead, the angry black girl, Vicaria, for the majority. That's the focus. So I'm curious, in this sense, you're following Frankenstein, because it's the name of the creator, not of the monster. But you're following Frankenstein through the movie as opposed to the monster. Was there a reason why you chose to focus on like creator over creature, or it was just easier to hone in?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like the book is titled after the creator.
Yeah.
It's just like, so, and what people, I feel like a lot of people, what it got away from people is just like everyone kind of gets obsessed with the monster.
Yeah.
Okay. Like everyone is just like, we got it. We got it. Trust me. Like, you know what I mean? And what I wanted, now granted, it's just like, sure, it's just like I do have a version where it's just like, a more faithful version where it's like we're dealing with the monster, but the main goal for me for this was always like bringing the spotlight back to the creator. Because like this is creator's story. The book is the rise and fall of this man. You know what I mean? And I wanted to refocus that light, and shine it, where it needed to be, like narratively speaking, because, listen, like as interesting as the monster is, he is just a fucking side character in this piece. Like, I mean, he's the lead antagonist, but like, okay, like, it's like, I don't feel like we need to be caught up in that. Like what's important is her journey.
Yeah.
That's what's crucial to me. You know what I mean? And that's what was most important to me to capture.
Absolutely. Yeah. Learning that you're such a lover of the book, I was curious what your thoughts even were on like the Universal movie. It makes sense, and the Universal movie exists in its own way and is great for what it is, but it obviously is a completely different story. It changes everything. You know, they went with a more gimmicky thing to focus on at the time, and they tell their own important story in that way. But yeah, your story focusing on the creator, it just makes more sense to me. I'm curious with the portrayal of, you know, like the revived brother coming back, and almost having sort of that monkey's paw sort of situation where he comes back different, potentially dangerous, well, clearly very dangerous. It raises a lot of questions about identity, perception, the consequences of playing God. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the exploration of those themes in this film, and where that kind of ties in with the other social commentary.
Yeah, I mean, I think identity is important, just for someone's humanity. You know, I think it anchors us, you know, and I think it gives us stuff to stand on, you know, and I think for me personally, it's like when thinking about identity, you know, it's like when you don't have it, you know, you're willing to, it means just like then anyone can give you your identity, you know, and, you know, which is something I thought was very horrifying, you know, because, you know, to me, you know, with this story, like one of the scariest things is like if someone calls you something, it's like, and, you know, like you believe them or whatever, you know, something as simple as someone saying, you know, you're stupid, it's like can change, and you believing that can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
And that is very horrifying to me. You know what I mean? All because, you know, I'm not saying it's your fault, but, you know, you not knowing yourself and having an identity, be like, no, I'm not stupid. Like, you know, fuck you. Right? It's like, you know, it's like something like that. It's very horrifying to me, you know, because there are people that I've met that I know, you know, I mean, I'm sure you know people who just like, yeah, someone like said this to me when I was young, and and I was like, oh, and, you know, they just went the rest of their lives believing that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're just like, they said fucking what? Like,
right.
It's, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's, you know, it's that sort of self or societal fulfilling prophecy of labeling someone or a group of people as something, and then it kind of creating the situations where, you know, it can at least they can start to appear more and more like that's true when it's not, you know, boxing someone into a situation where they feel trapped and end up expressing themselves in a way that's what they become.
Well, and also
I get it.
There's also the moments in your film where, you know, speaking to name as part of your identity. I mean, the scene with Vicaria and her teacher is there's so many crazy, strong, and uncomfortable in the best way, necessarily uncomfortable scenes. And one of them is, you know, Vicaria and her teacher basically saying, you know, I'm going to call you Vicky because it's easier. You know, like that's a great example of, you know, Vicaria is claiming her identity, saying what her name is, and then the teacher, you know, the next scene with Vicaria and her father, which is extremely powerful, you know, saying that, oh, her European last name is beautiful, as if someone has the ability to tell you what parts of your identity are more beautiful or inherently more important than others. So I loved your exploration of that, both with Vicaria and with the monster, with Chris, calling him Chris. He's Chris in the movie. So I guess I'm curious from your point of view, you know, when Chris comes back, he's not himself. He's pieces of different people. What were you trying to say by the resurrection of Chris? You know, he was led to this point, kind of he became a monster beforehand, or he became something that maybe his sister didn't see, but then was reborn to be this monster that, you know, people may have saw him as. I'm curious what your thoughts were, with like what the monster was supposed to be in this
film. As in what, like, as in what the monster in this film is, like, is that what you're asking?
because I guess the one thing that I just struggle with a bit, or I just want to know your perspective is, you know, Chris is led to death by unfortunate ways, by, you know, gang affiliation, which is, we see, you know, even young kids doing it in the area that they're in. But when Chris is reborn, obviously, like, there's like the freak of nature aspect, you shouldn't be reborn sort of thing, but he really is a monster. Like, he is, you know, killing cops and doing these things that even the gang members are not, like, accepting of, you know. So I'm curious, instead of bringing Chris to be someone that could, like, be with Vicaria for a point in time, why were you creating, like, I guess, what were you trying to say by creating this monster to be this thing that is just, like, objectively harmful or hurtful?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask the question more of just like what's making this monster, you know, or like person harmful. You know,
Right.
I think that's the better question. You
Yeah.
know, because as far as I'm concerned, when he came out, you know, it's like he didn't hurt Vicaria. You know, it's like, and it's like, and he brought no damage to, you know, that little girl. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, you know, to me, I would ask the question like, you know, what's driving him? You know what I mean,
Yeah.
to do these monstrous acts, you know, and what's happening, you know, because like I think that's a stronger question for that, and that's what I would like, you know, how, you know, I would ask you like how you felt about those things and what, you know, what you were viewing when you were watching it for that.
Yeah.
It
No, I
Yeah.
completely understand that.
I
Yeah.
think it,
Huh.
if you were asking, I would say it seems like it goes kind of to what we were just talking about
Mhm.
how people are perceiving and treating him, you know,
Mhm.
and all of this built up anger and aggression that he has, and so that's why it's kind of all over the place. Where he, you know, it, like, to me, him killing the cops made sense,
Yeah.
you know, or even like, you know, potentially even other gang members and stuff. I was a bit confused when he killed his family, you know, when he kind
Mhm.
of blew up on them, but at that point it still just like results back to how he was treated even by people in his own community once a certain thing happened. I'm
Yep.
not exactly sure, but that's kind of what I was picking up from it.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think, I mean, at least for me, when I'm thinking about it, it's like, you know, you know, the questions of identity and prejudice are always kind of, uh, circulating when it
Yeah.
comes to, you know,
Of
the
course.
monster, you know, even, you know, what is, you know, whatever his trigger might be, you know, it kind of always circles back to identity and prejudice, you know, because to me, at the end of the day, like, you know, prejudice and, you know, is a way of robbing someone of their identity and their humanity. And, you
Absolutely.
know, to me, it's like when it comes to the monster, I think that those elements are, you know, whenever he lashes out, are always being challenged.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, whether that's um, whether it's him being challenged by a gang member or his own father not recognizing him as his son. You know, that's an identity. That's a challenge to your identity. You know what I mean, and your humanity as a human. You know what I mean. So um, that would be kind of like, you know, that's kind of where I would, you know, my head and my emotions would be for there. You know, it's like
Yeah.
when we're, yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. And it's something where as you're explaining, I'm like, I was literally looking at it from a completely different perspective, and your kind of reshaping of it makes complete sense. Like, your alignment of how I should be looking at it. Um, one question similar to that, at the beginning
Mhm.
of the conversation, you spoke about how, you know, um, there's not a lot of black horror, and also
Mhm.
just black film in general.
Mhm.
You know, with your film subject, you're talking about, you know, black trauma, which is
Mhm.
obviously something that is, from an outside perspective, you know, not the people that made the film, not the people that know the stories,
Mhm.
um is kind of polarizing. So I struggle and I look at reviews for films when I probably shouldn't have. But one thing that I see a lot of people talking about, and I don't agree with them, is the idea of exploiting Black trauma.
Sure.
And I'm just curious what your thought is on the idea of exploiting Black trauma when you're a Black filmmaker who wrote this film and directed this film, and you're using horror to tell this difficult story. But then there's people that will say, and even not just for your film, for other films, that you're exploiting Black trauma. I'm curious what your take is on that.
I mean, I think it's a valid criticism. I think, it's like kind of saying that or whatever, I mean, it's just like, being exploitative or Black, trauma. I see it mixed in with, not only is it, can it be exploitative, it can also be, cliche. It can also be,
right.
What's it called? Look, I can't think of the other word. I just had it, lost it. But anyways, the point is, like, for me, when it comes to this, I don't, from my perspective is, a story like this, to put your head in the sand and look the other way, like the story doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And, I think one of my favorite artists is Tupac. And one of his interviews I always remember was him there. Someone asked him, was like, what's the mark of a good rapper or whatever, artist? And he always said, well, you can't just you can't just glorify shooting motherfuckers without talking about the pain. You have to show the breadth of this. You know what I mean? And like, I think to a certain extent, when we're talking about the exploitation of, Black trauma, sometimes I feel like it's extremely dehumanizing because you're not, showcasing the breadth of this. It's just like, even though we have, these traumatic experiences and, and have some traumatic portions of our history, we do have excellent parts of our history as well. We have heroes, we have intelligence, and we have, these positive stories of triumph as well. And when the stream is going one way, 1,000%, I'm gonna get annoyed. It's like, so for me with this movie, when kind of approaching it, I always kind of felt like, yes, I do understand that I'm digging my fingers in sensitive places, but I also would hope that, you'll see that there's light here. I do think that, for instance, with Vicaria as a, genius, it's like, doing a thing, being extremely intelligent, as well as showcasing what she's doing is her passion. Yeah. Some people might see it as dark, what she's doing, but there are people who work in the morgue who are very happy with what they do. You know what I mean? And I've always said that, like, I've said to some, I forgot during QA, but like, it is, to work in a morgue, like, it's like, it has its thing, but it's like, it is also an honor to clean up someone's family member to present to them for the last time, for the closure. There's an extreme great honor in that. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a delicate thing, but there is that. So to me, like, I try to show a scope of these emotions and palette for the community with this. It's like, I know it's traumatic subject matter, but for me, it's like, I wanted to go there so I can show these other places as well.
Of course, it's. I mean, ultimately, that comes down to what the horror genre is kind of about anyway. It's about touching these traumatic places of all kinds of trauma that we just share as a species, that different communities share, and things like that. And there's always been discussions about the lines of horror and where it does and doesn't cross lines, and where things are cathartic and healthy, even though they're exploring traumatic, and where things might be exploitation and they're just not black and white, crisp lines. It's why it's important that these conversations are being had, for sure.
Horror is definitely a trauma vehicle as a genre. Like,
100%.
There's no getting away from that.
Right. And it's such a powerful tool for that too. It's a place where you can, again, be cathartic and just kind of get out the anger and the frustration and even hate and things like that, sadness.
Yeah.
And it's also a way to like experience something vicariously, experience another community's trauma, contextualize something. There's so much to it. That's really what we're trying to do, a lot with our show, is explore that. Speaking of, there's another theme, a reoccurring thing that you say throughout the movie, that Vicaria says, the whole death is a disease thing. I'm curious where that concept came in. I know that you're an Aronofsky fan, and I think I saw you mention something about the fountain, which I have not seen, but if you could break that down a little bit for listeners that also might not know, where that comes into play.
Yeah, the fountain is the way, the truth, and the light. You know what I mean? The way, the truth, and the light, I love, Aronofsky is one of my heroes as a filmmaker, and The Fountain is one of my favorite movies from him. And that line always kind of stuck with me after I watched the movie. And it was definitely a way to contextualize to me how Vicaria is feeling about, the shit that she's in. Yeah. And, it was my way to not only pay homage to Aronofsky, shout out to him. I'll probably never watch this, but shout out to him anyway.
We're gonna tag him so hard, a million times in this shit. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like not only that, but also just like how I feel like Vicaria would be, contextualizing this, intelligently, and like how she would kind of be thinking about this.
Yeah,
of course. Fan for The Fountain.
Yeah. I gotta watch it. I gotta watch it. I love that idea. I love that death is a disease. Just her saying it throughout the movie. That I don't know why it struck a chord with me, and I was like, I don't know. That could mean so many things, but I like it. And then hearing that it's it's from this Aronofsky film, it really makes me want to watch it. Have you heard about all the mRNA stuff that they're doing? The kind of stuff they did with the COVID vaccines and what they might be doing regarding aging and immortality. I don't know if either of you have seen this. I haven't got to talk to either of you about this, but no. You seem like a perfect person to ask this question to.
The only thing I saw about it was like that they were like fast tracking, or not fast tracking, but like using it for HIV, right? Like something along those lines with mRNA. Like there was something along the lines where just like this might help us with HIV or whatever.
Sure.
I saw that, but the anti-aging thing, I like vaguely heard about it. I haven't dived into it yet.
Got you. It's obviously there's a lot to it. I've been watching a ton of videos and reading and kind of being obsessed with it lately. But especially since this recent AI boom that we've had, our ability to further technologies and sciences like that is just skyrocketing. And basically on a super smart SparkNotes version, part of the reason that we age and kind of die, slowly die over years, is because our chromosomes have these caps on them that break down over time, and they shrink over time. And as they shrink, it basically ruins the body's ability to produce cells faster than they're dying. But with mRNA is basically code, that we enter into our bodies that teach our DNA to do different things, and we can strengthen those tips on the chromosomes. Or imagine if like every 10 years you could get a vaccine that strengthened those tips so you're not aging.
Like
it's a very real I have a whole breakdown. I'm not going to bore everybody with all the science of it, but it's literally it's a very real thing. It is not just like hypothetical conversations that are being had about this. So I'm just curious what you think about us as a species kind of entering into that playing God territory
of an era of living forever.
Yeah, or just much longer, Yeah.
Like, listen, like, I think that, like, it does get to a certain point where you might be hoarding, it's like if you're kind of walking around this earth a little too long, you know what I mean? It gets to a certain point where it's like, all right, it's like, I'm not going to tell people to die, it's like, I feel like that's fucked up, but so be like, look, there's stop laughing.
It was a good. You're tiptoeing on the line really well. I like it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's just like, look, there's another generation coming up after me.
Yeah.
Okay. And they want to play. Okay. And sometimes the way I look at it is just like, you wouldn't feel good if, people were hanging around high schools longer than they should.
Good way to put it.
It's a great point. Yeah.
So, listen, you know what I mean? There's another generation coming up after me, and they want to do stuff. They want to play, you know what I mean? They want to do shit. And like, for me personally, it's like, I don't want to stand in the way of that. It's just like, I think everyone has a right to enjoy life the way that they want to, without me getting in the way of that shit, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so many like societal implications with that. I mean, first we think about class stuff and who's really going to get that sort of treatment. It's going to be the richest and worst people in the world. And straight up, I mean, that's just the reality of it. And I'm just imagining dystopian futures of like, childbirth becoming illegal so that we can just keep the same batch of people around all the time.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
I know.
Sean. This is
say,
all a thing. This is all.
They're not gonna.
We are entering into a weird time.
They're not going to play this episode in China because they're talking about.
It's like we already kind of have evidence of what happens when people like accumulate and hoard things. Like they just keep it. They don't like. Like the majority of them just like they just maintain it. They're just like, well, I got all this stuff, so I guess I'm just gonna keep it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like I don't know what everyone thinks is gonna happen.
Right.
But that right?
Yeah, you're like, how is that billionaire a teenager? Oh, they're not a teenager. They're 84. They look really good still.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I was a billionaire then. I'm going to be a billionaire now, and I get to be a billionaire for 80 more years.
Yep.
That does sound awful.
Yeah.
There's a Twilight Zone episode about it.
Yeah. One thing before we let you go, we want to talk about a very specific aspect of this film, which is the visual aspect. There's so many good visual things in this film, from how good the practical effects are with the gore. It's not too much, it's not too little. It's a sweet spot. Even the like stitching of Chris's new face is just like, it's bad in the best way. But one thing we really wanted to talk about is the reincarnation scene, the flipping the switch scene, because that felt like an ode to the old. Can you talk about how that came about and kind of what your relationship was with like the production design and DP and VFX people on your crew?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, first, shout out to Christina Cordum. She was the one woman band who did not only the creature design, putting them together, as well as all the gore practical effects. She did all of it.
Hell yeah. Big shout out.
Wow. Yeah. So she was really out there just putting in work.
Yeah. She
nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
In work. So there was that. And so like, she was fantastic. My DP, fucking Daphne, man, like shit, she was, she was incredible to work with, I hope she works with me again. It's like, she's fucking awesome. I'd be honored to have her again. It's like, it's kind of a weird power imbalance now, with all these people. It's just like, oh, like, I will be like faithful to you, but you don't have to be faithful to me because I love you so much. Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, so like you can abuse me, it'll be fine. Like it's nah, they're so good, So and Mark Bankins, he's really he really went to town. It's like almost, especially the lab. It's one of my grievances with the movie where it's like, damn, I didn't have enough, because he put so much attention to detail in there, and I wasn't able to kind of really like show you how crazy in that lab, because he went to fucking town. I really wish I had the time to really like, really kind of go in there, because if you ever talk to Leia, just ask her, because when she was in there, she was just looking at shit, just being like, holy shit. It's like,
it's
yeah.
Sure, I mean, that set was so cool. Just the idea of this teen girl that has this hidden lab is super fun. And I think, I don't know, I totally get wanting to show it off more, but you left me wondering, like, it almost feels like
Yeah.
bigger than it is, and like there's more, you know what I mean? Because I didn't get to see everything. My brain kind of fills in the gaps.
Yeah, like
I want
the
to talk
other
a
side
little.
of those flaps too. You only
Yeah.
see the one side. Well, I mean, you see both, but like you really are on the one side of the flaps, and you don't see the other side that much. Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
humongous.
There's also something about that, like, tactile, like spare parts science aspect of it, you know, about like, I don't know, this looks cool as hell. I don't know if it would really work, but I'm telling myself this would work. And I guess this isn't even a question. I just want to compliment the some of the CGI too, because I've seen a lot of movies try, you know, lightning and just not nail it, like electricity and just not nail it. And I was so impressed. I like turned to Steve and was like, that was cool as shit. Every bit of electricity that you have in that movie and that whole scene, it showed off the lab so well. It was just, I want to applaud it. It was very, very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks, boys. You know, out here doing gangster shit on the electricity. It's out here really, you know, bringing it to life. I loved that. You know, it's like them, you know, just the squad. You know, it's like, and then, you know, Kaylee with our costumes. You know, she really she was fucking shit up. You know, she was really out there just doing the damn thing. I called them the Holy Trinity. I called, you know, Daphne, my DP, and production designer Mark Bankett and Kaylee Brenneman. I was like, for costume, I was like, yeah, y'all the Holy Trinity. Like, right, you know. So yeah, just everybody kind of was on their, not kind of, everybody was on their A game. Everybody showed up and really just, you know, pulled out. You know, even with the hair, you know, with Renisha doing the hair, like the girls' hairs were just phenomenal styles that, you know, everyone was expressing themselves at a top level. And, you know, I couldn't have been luckier, you know, to have a crew like that. Especially, you know, it's like the North Carolina crew really took care of us.
Yeah, it all really shows through in the film, which I think is the best. The best thing about this film to me, while it's a wonderful adaptation and is a great story, it just feels so authentic, and I think that's like something that you rarely get, you know, and it just comes through so well. What were you gonna say, Sean?
It felt like everyone cared, I think, is like, that's what I'm realizing now, is like that's part of one of the great things about it, is you can just kind of tell, like, oh, like this was a crew of people, everybody was on the same page and put in their work, and you can feel it in the movie, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone was very passionate about this, you know, which was awesome. You know, it's like, it's always good being surrounded by people who support you, the vision and the movie, and believe in it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I do like watching some movies though where it feels like only one person cared about the movie.
Right. You know?
I'm like, yeah, for you, Eastman. It's like, but I dig it.
Yeah, this is the director's vision, and everybody else is just here for the $200 and McDonald's that they're getting. Yeah, they don't give a shit. I'm on set. Cash at me my money.
Yeah, there's entertainment value in those movies, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's very true. What a great flip to that. So Bomani, one last thing about Frankenstein that I gotta ask, is there's a lot of references in this film, and I guess I don't want to steal your answer here, so I'm not going to list the references. But what is your favorite thing that's kind of like a direct quote or a direct reference from the novel that you put in your movie? I got it.
You want me to give away one of the
yeah, because like I was about to list a bunch and I'm like, you're probably gonna say one, and I'll even tell you what mine is too when you're done. But yeah, there's so many good references from actual story references to lines to this and that, and I'm curious if there was like one that you snuck in there maybe.
Yeah, I definitely snuck in quite a few. You know, I'll give one. It's her line outside the lab when she's arguing with that boy. She's arguing with Jerome, and she says you have to have recourse for life. Says, I forgot the exact line, but that's a direct from the book. You know, and you know that one was for the lit heads.
Yeah,
for the lit heads.
The lit heads read the book and know they'll catch. You know.
Perfect. Listen, I felt really good about myself because I haven't read the book since like freshman year of college. but Frankenstein learns how to read, or kind of learns English, from a young girl. And I loved that you had that reference in this film. It was something that's like, it's not talked about a ton. Like, she quickly asks, like, oh, how did you learn how to read? She's like, I taught him. But I loved
missed
that. And I
that.
was like, oh, this is such a relevant like tie back to the original novel. So I just had to
Yeah.
call it out because it was great.
Yeah, a lot of people leave that on the floor.
You
I
can't.
don't know.
It's so smart. And the way
Yeah.
they did it, it's so smart. It's
Yeah,
you
people
can't.
leave that part on the floor. They also leave like the black marks of the monster,
Yeah, the
like
monster.
that on the floor too. I'm like, that shit's in the novel, man. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, sometimes the best pieces are just looked over. I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know how to explain it. Well, Bomani, it's been a pleasure having you on and chatting about your film. I know Sean and I have said it, but we really enjoyed watching it and are really excited for everyone to check it out. Before we let you go, we end all of these conversations by asking for something that we call mostly horror recommendations. So essentially what that means is a horror film and then maybe a non-horror film, or it could be a book or a TV show or something that you would recommend the listeners check out. Really curious what you would say.
yeah. Okay, so she's been on my mind recently, so I'll say when it comes to horror, I'd be like, it's anything Julia Ducournau. I don't think that's how you pronounce her last
Yes.
name. Right? Is that how you say it?
Yes, I think
Okay.
Julia
Okay.
Ducournau. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say Titan. I love Raw
Yes.
and but I'll
Yes.
say Titan. It's like, yeah, you gotta watch that. Got to.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good. I love Raw. Raw is one of my favorite like horror films, and
Yeah.
Titan is insane in
Yeah.
an amazing
It's
way.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuts.
I can't wait for her to announce her next film that's about like I can't even make up a goofy or interesting enough premise to like fake a
Yeah.
movie by her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. I got super fan energy for her and her movies. Like,
Hell yeah.
Hell
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
She, that really quick. Is it Titan?
Titan.
Is that how you say it?
Titan.
Titan.
yeah.
I wonder if she was thinking about Frankenstein in that. Like, it feels like there's almost like some Frankenstein stuff in there, right? Am I wrong? Is that just
Kinda.
me?
It's a
I'm not
lot
even
about it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not even gonna pretend to be able to understand her genius. You know what I mean?
That's-
Like,
Yeah.
she has too much going on in her brain.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, and then just kind of like a non-horror movie, or book, right?
Yeah.
Book, TV show, really just any recommendation.
Oh yeah. I guess no, I'll just be an asshole. Like Inland Empire by David Lynch. I love
Okay.
that movie. Yeah.
Okay.
You fuckers watch that. 3 hours of fucking genius. It's like, I love that movie. Like, yeah, everyone watch that.
Okay.
There you go.
That's
You got between Lynch and Ducournau, you got some crazy recommendations going on.
right.
But that could make for a very interesting and quite long double feature if you wanted to pull that off.
Yes.
Have you guys seen Inland Empire?
Yeah, I've seen Inland Empire.
Did you catch the reference in the movie to Inland Empire? There's one in
No,
there.
I didn't realize you had an Inland Empire reference. Now I gotta watch it again.
I won't tell you, so it's
Okay.
like you could think about, but there's like a famous scene famous scare scene in there that like I riffed on in
Okay.
in the. I'll let you, you can find it on your own, but there's
that didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
All right.
Dang. So that's a
Well,
double feature in itself.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say I'm gonna have to revisit it so I'm gonna shoot you a DM on Instagram or something and be like, I got it. I know what it is.
yeah.
Oh,
If you
man.
find it, do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Bomani, it's been an absolute blast. Really appreciate having you on. Any
So much.
final things that you want to say to our listeners before we let you go?
June 9th in theaters. Check it out.
Hell yeah.
Angry Black Monster in theaters, man. June 9th.
There
show
we
up
go.
and show
Show up, show out. Couldn't have said it better ourselves. Thank you again so much, Bomani. We really appreciate it. All right. Thank you all so much for listening to our interview with Bomani J. Story. As I mentioned, his film comes out on June 9th, and The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. So be sure to check it out. Let us know what you think, because we certainly enjoyed it. As always, it's time for our mostly horror recommendations of the week. Sean's going to take this one, though, to start.
You know what I recommend, Steve? Youth. I recommend just staying young. Just don't. What's that scene in Billy Madison when he's like, "Stay here, stay as long as you can," dude. I didn't mention it at the beginning because I was hiding from it. I didn't want to. I'm in denial. I didn't want to admit it to you, to them, or to myself. But guys, the day of this episode's release, worldwide, the wide release of it. It is June 5th today, and I am 30 years old. I am 30. It's gross. Luckily, this is me. See, you hear the energy that you hear in my voice right now? That's because it's still a 29-year-old.
It's a 29 energy.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, next time you hear me, I'm gonna be you're just gonna hear nothing but cracks and while we're recording and groans, and I'm just gonna be bitter about everything. So, and we probably have a lot of 30-year-olds, 30-plus-year-olds that listen. So I'm not trying to insult any of you guys. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about my aging, decaying body. Yeah. But I guess
everyone say happy birthday while you're listening to this. Everyone say happy birthday to Sean right now. Thank you.
Oh my God, you guys, stop it! You shouldn't have. No, really, you shouldn't have. This was awful. I had a bad time. I never want to do this again. In the spirit of youth, though, I'm going to, for a secret reason that we're not going to talk about yet. My recommendation is going to be to get out there and watch some of the cartoons from your youth, like maybe Cow and Chicken. I think Cow and Chicken specifically has been in my head a lot recently, and I couldn't recommend that show enough. It has some incredibly problematic things in it, but it is a reflection of the times, and you'll at least get a kick out of seeing some of the shit that Cartoon Network used to get away with. And I'll leave it at that. Steve, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Been taking in a couple of random things recently. I know I recommended some weeks ago, actually probably during the beginning of our once we started doing mostly horror recommendations, I recommended the band Sleep Token. They released their album that they had been dropping singles off of. It's called Take Me Back to Eden. It is perfect from top to bottom.
Listen.
It is an hour long, which is nothing's worse than when you have an album that you like really love the singles of, or you like really love an album, but it's only 30 minutes. Like, Woe Is Me's Numbers is a great album.
Yeah.
I love it. It's 30 minutes long, and it's
short
done
and sweet.
so fast. This record is so good. Sleep Token is so unique, and I've been listening to an audiobook on my way to work, on my commutes to and from work. And since this album dropped, I've stopped listening to the book, really, because I just can't listen. I truly can't listen to anything else. I need to soak in as much of this as I can. But that is a good segue into my second of 3 recommendations today, which is the book Under the Whispering Door. I am trying to read. Don't have a lot of time to read, so I'm listening to audiobooks. I've been listening to this book. I saw the cover in Eugene, Oregon, when Sydney and I were there like a month ago. Looked really interesting. Read the back and thought it was interesting as well. So I started listening to it. I didn't realize that it was going to be have elements of queer romance, which I'm totally fine with. It was just like kind of came out of nowhere, but essentially it's about a man dies and is greeted by his reaper and what is called a ferryman, and kind of analyzes his life. And so it's again, I'm only like a third of the way through the book, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a very unique perspective. And as someone who thinks about death frequently, it's good to have a fresh perspective of death, and I'm really curious where it's going to go. So I wanted to recommend it. 'Cause it's worth recommending, even though I'm only part of the way through it.
Sure.
Those are those two. And then the last one I need to look
I'll say
up.
two things about those two really quick while you do that. So that's perfect. It's the first thing you talk about album length. Whatever happened, guys, go listen to Usher's Confessions album. That thing is 17 tracks long. All right, it's a 4-hour album. It's and it's amazing for it. I love it. It's not really 4 hours. It's like an hour long. Maybe a little bit longer, but it's great. Don't listen. Here's the thing, though. Listen, you have to go find yourself a physical copy. You cannot listen to. If you're trying to stream it, you're only going to be able to find the quote expanded edition. Why they got Jadakiss on throwback? It doesn't make any sense. All right, stop the nonsense and listen to the true version of the album. The other thing I was going to say was you sold me on that book. Maybe I'll add that. I just finished my 6th book of the year. I'm about to start my 7th. Maybe that'll be next. So
it's interesting. I will. It's not horror. But I will. It's very much fantasy. But
sure.
I'll give you a thorough review when I'm done with it.
Sure.
Which I'm gonna keep powering through.
Hell yeah.
My last recommendation is a film about a cult. It's called Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. It's a film that came out in 2011, and it's the film that really kicked off Elizabeth Olsen's career.
Okay.
It was Sean Durkin's first film, and it stars Elizabeth Olsen, Sarah Paulson, John Hawkes, Christopher Abbott, Hugh Dancy, who is Will from Hannibal, is in it as well. And essentially a woman escapes a cult and struggles with the post-cult life is kind of the gist of it. It is it's really interesting. I think that Elizabeth Olsen is so good, and my only issue with this film is how it ends. It's not a bad ending. I just think her performance is so good that she deserves a better ending, in my opinion. But it's not like The Last Exorcism, where I'm like, this movie, I don't like this movie anymore because
drop the ball.
But it's a great movie. There's some really interesting parts in it. Really tough to watch parts, but Elizabeth Olsen is so good, and it just reminded me of how great an actress she was before she was sucked into the Marvel universe. Not that you can't be a great actor in the Marvel universe, but it just affects something about, the roles that you're a part of, I feel like. So
yeah, that's fair. I love Wanda, but I was just talking about this earlier today, or maybe 2 days ago. They're fucking that up. They're fucking that up. I think they're really all over the place with Wanda. That's all. But okay,
she's
I'll check this out.
So good.
Love her.
I recommend that anyone that is interested in, psychological thrillers, straightforward dramas, cult stuff. It's got bits and pieces of Charles Manson and those kind of vibes.
Weird homegrown Simpson stuff,
Weird homegrown bare butt balls and back. So yeah, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. The name makes sense when you watch the movie. Those are my 3 mostly horror recommendations this week. And now it's time where I tell you to email us. Listen, I'm on my phone all day, and Sean and I get emails to mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. And unfortunately, if you're listening to this right now, you're not emailing us. So what I need you to do, and listen, some people I've said at the end of episodes, I've said, send me a balloon emoji, and they've done it. So I know people are listening. Or I've said, tell me about, recently, the most recent one, we were talking shit about how no one has seen what's her name from The Shining? Shelley Duvall. No one's seen a Shelley Duvall movie except for The Shining. Someone was like, what about Popeye? And I was like, good shit. A, you're listening. B, totally true.
Right.
So you're listening to this right now, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. Tell us your mostly horror recommendation of the week. We will read it on the next episode. Tell us about, do you like Frankenstein? Do you like Victorian novels? Do you like horror novels? Have you read the book Under the Whispering Door that I'm reading right now? Don't spoil the ending for me, please. Do you like Sleep Token? Because we'll be friends. I like Sleep Token, and we'll be friends.
I feel like if for no other reason, do it for our mental health. I feel like I'm speaking into a void here, a vacuum.
Yeah.
I just talk to us, say words, literally tell me.
We know the
Fucking
stats.
A.
People listen to the show.
Yeah, God damn it.
We know you're
there
there.
are numbers.
Yeah, we know you're there
Just stop
listening.
ignoring us.
You may be in Denmark or something, but send us an email, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram at mostlyhorrorpod. You can also find us at Twitter at mostlyhorror. We're on YouTube at mostlyhorrorpod, and we're also on TikTok at mostlyhorror. I bounced around. So Twitter
You'll
and
find
TikTok
it
are mostly
later.
horror. YouTube and Instagram are mostly horror pod.
I know
we
about
are
all the obscure things that you find online when you need it. If you're looking for us, you're gonna find it. All right.
Yeah, you'll find us if you look, and so be looking and send us a message wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, whatever you may be thinking. Send us a message. If you for some reason want to do it to me personally, I'm on all the socials at Steven is Average, and Sean is everywhere at Hypocrite Inc. or hypocrite.inc. As always, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Goodbye.